Okay, I have a very important question to ask. It seems like the upcoming unit in Wuthering Waves has been a very hot topic almost immediately after Augusta was released. So I'm just wondering if y'all have a foot fetish? Look, I'm just curious because I don't know why else there's so much conversation around her. I've seen her face so much, I feel like Kuro is paying people to advertise her at this point. But anyways, with Yuno being on the way, it made me realize that these most recent characters are becoming very powerful, with Augusta being so powerful and getting an exotic dancer to boost her strength even further when she's already arguably the best DPS in the game. Calcharo is suffering even more than he already was. Now don't get me wrong, every character in this game is still usable to some extent, especially since there is a huge degree of skill expression in this game. So yeah, if you really love this one guy from the new federation that we don't know anything about, you'll just have to be glued to your chair for a couple of hours. I am thankful for the skill aspect of Wuthering Waves, because if not, we'd just be in a star rail situation where the characters below a certain line on the tier list are pretty much unusable. So do you think that Wuthering Waves could get to a point like this? Because that would be a nightmare. Matter of fact, the release of Augusta has really highlighted how mediocre these Electro characters are compared to the new queen. Now, I don't want male lovers to absolutely rip into me for this, but I think that there's just no need for Zhang Liao at the moment. For example, some of his best teams have quick swap mechanics, and if you are good at that kind of thing, then great. But for the average player or myself, we're not going to use Zhang Liao because it isn't worth the headache. There's also the fact that Chang Li has her premium team now too, so it isn't like that team is her time to shine anymore. Plus, when it comes to these older characters, if you have people that put all of this time or resources or even money into these older units, you want to see them be somewhat useful without you having to sweat your balls off to see results from them. One of the characters that I regret putting resources into is Yinlin. On release, it seemed like there was no doubt that she'd have a lot more value than someone like Jian due to her being a sub DPS, because we've seen this type of pattern before in other games. The first DPS gets released, is usually complete garbage within a year of the game's release. And our most recent example of this is Ellen from ZZZ, who was immediately irrelevant as soon as Miyabi released and falling off even before that, and subsequently needed a buff because of the first DPS syndrome. Jian, however, while obviously not being the best DPS in the game, is still holding his own. So it's very unfortunate that we didn't see this coming, and Yinlin is pretty much the worst limited 5-star in the game. Her best in slot team is nothing special, and there isn't a team where you use her over anyone else. For Jinxie, I'd rather have Jeje or even Cantarella over Yinlin. You can just throw her in with Augusta, but Yuno has nicer feet, and the king of Septimon. Wait, did you just run that back to look at that picture? I know you just did. I know you just paused the video to look at that picture. You're not slick. Augusta is broken anyways. You can use her with Havoc Rover, I guess, but anyone else isn't even worth mentioning. I like the root of indirect buffs, such as the Empyrean Anthem set and Echo buffs, but that's not going to cut it. Let's just go straight to the source and give her multiplier buffs, because her long animations have not kept up with the evolution of Wuthering Waves. And not to mention, you literally need String Master. Now, it is the best rectifier in the game, so you should have it if you're any type of player. I'm not even sure if another weapon has general buffs that are this great for any rectifier character. So yes, get String Master. It's probably #1 on the Mount Rushmore of weapons. Another character that suffers from the amount of DPS being released of their same element is Jinxie. Gojo's sister doesn't have the 6 eyes, but is very powerful in her own right still, and I don't think that she needs buffs yet for sure. I'm still on the fence about it because of the fact that she's still great in the tower, but the Spectro DPS bloat and the fact that she's so much worse in Whimpering Wastes due to her being a nuke DPS is telling me she could maybe not use a direct buff, but finally receive a sub DPS that's specifically made for her that can take care of the AoE mobs for her. Cheng-Li, on the other hand, is great in Whimpering Wastes with Jinxie, but once again, most people don't want to learn all that niche stuff that you have to do to get maximum value out of a team like that. Considering Jinxie is a Sentinel Resonator and does have a lot of importance in the lore, I would love to see her and other Sentinel Resonators keeping a pretty high echelon of strength so that it makes sense gameplay wise. Cardathea is still obviously very strong, but imagine a future where we had a situation like the one Raiden Shogun is in. One of the most intimidating and powerful Archons in Teyvat was bested by a clumsy cow. But she isn't the most disappointing Electro user that we've seen. That title has to go to Calculator. His damage is simply too bad, even with crazy echo investment. A lot of the earlier units are pretty clunky to play, and this guy is no exception to that. He requires a lot of skill and patience. Sadly though, I don't realistically see any standard units receiving any buffs. He has acceptable teams with quick swap. Are you seeing the trend here? It's unfortunate because he does have one of the coolest designs in the game, and I'd like them to utilize this character somewhat eventually, but this guy suffers from side character treatment. I know there's no incentive to buff standard units because they aren't limited time characters, but I'd argue it would be an incentive to make me feel better about losing a 50-50. Losing one right now to anyone besides Verena kind of just makes you want to punch a hole through your monitor. The worst of them being a unit like Ling Yang, who doesn't even have the cool factor going for him. He's just bad, and there's no other way around it. Look how he fights. He's got to be trolling with these dumbass toothpicks he's walking on. I don't see anyone talking about this guy, and I don't blame them because there isn't much to talk about. He does no damage, and if you think some of these other units are clunky, then don't even touch Ling Yang with the 10-foot pole because he's probably the clunkiest in the game. At this point, I think Kuro just wants him to be like that, so there's still the fear of losing the 50-50 to this completely useless pool. So I respect the joke. Ling Yang must be an industry plant, but there are some 4-stars that deserve buffs too. Adding more 4-stars to the game is not gonna help you because you will just bloat the character pool with more mid units that you won't even bat an eye at whenever you're trying to go for that 5-star. Characters like Mortefi and Sanwa are still great for free-to-plays, but it's sad to see characters like Yuanwu basically be unusable outside of Jinxie, so you can have that use case for him in the tower, but that's about it. Characters like Lumi and Yohu, on the other hand, are some of our most recent 4-stars, which is crazy to say because of how long ago they were released, but they pretty much serve no purpose. Nobody is seriously running hyper carry Lumi unless you're just him. I don't know what the purpose is of going through the effort to do this though. One of my favorite 4-star designs in the game has to be Tao Chi. I love the chill vibe and the huge swords. She's got a nice collection here. You gotta love the different aesthetics you can pull off. On top of the buffs for the present 4-stars, if we're gonna even think about adding more of these characters, we need substitutes for limited 5-stars that can trigger reactions like Spectro Frazzle. A worse Phoebe would be fine. And a trigger for arrow erosion. I pray that the next 5-star has some sort of use outside of being a useless damage bot that doesn't do any sort of significant thing outside of that. I think the fact that you can make any character work in Wuthering Waves given the right build and the knowledge of the game mechanics is a great thing, but it's undeniable that some units have fallen off and potentially need complete reworks. So I hope that Kuro shows us eventually that they are willing to buff characters because it would make the quality of this game a lot better, given that people would be able to enjoy their favorite units and feel like their resources haven't been wasted by letting characters just sit on their account for months and trying to scramble to build newer characters. The animations are progressively getting better, as well as the story behind these units, so at least the incentive to pull the next best thing is still here, but I know we all have that attachment to 1 or 2 characters that will inevitably fall off. Also, let me know if you're okay with the current power balance in Wuwa and see no need for buffs. Now it's time for your gacha jargon word of the day, and you know what? We'll just make this one a gacha game today. Arknights. And yes, that's right, today's video is sponsored. Just kidding. But Arknights is a 3D RPG with real-time combat and strategic elements. And no, I'm not talking about the first Arknights, I meant Arknights Enfield, the Wuthering Waves killer. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you have, you look cute today. Peace.